Number 10. Dark Avengers. The Dark Avengers were first introduced in their own comic book series in Dark Avengers issue number 1. Not everyone is a fan of them, because while they're kind of Avengers, they're also kind of go against a lot of the things that the original team stood for. The Dark Avengers are led by Norman Osborn, who gets to make his own organization, Hammer, to safeguard the world's safety following the crumbling of S.H.I.E.L.D. and after his victory against the Skrull Queen, whose death was brought about by Osborn and was also televised, making him a worldwide hero in the eyes of many, despite the fact that, yeah, he was still definitely a villain. Still, although this team was comprised of villains, they did aim to do good things, just in their own way. In truth, they became more a team of anti-heroes than anything, with just a dash of villainous escapades organized by their leader Osborn, who at this point went by Iron Patriot. Sort of like the Iron Man of this Dark Avengers crew. Number 9. Avengers Academy. Avengers Academy was a series that replaced the Avengers The Initiative series. As that series ended, this one began. The Avengers Academy team was a group of superpowered youths who were selected to be trained as new Avengers. Although originally the teens thought that they had been selected due to the promise that they showed, it was later revealed that they had been selected because of the great risk that they would ultimately become villains. In fact, 6 of the teens were actually working for Norman Osborn during the Dark Avengers Hammer Dark Reign days, and likely could have ended up being trained by him to become Dark Avengers, should that whole situation have continued to play out. However, when the Avengers found out about them, they instead decided to create the Avengers Academy in an attempt to repurpose and redeem those youths. So basically took them in themselves. Hank Pym acted as the headmaster of this academy, while Tigra, Justice, Quicksilver, and Speedball took on roles as teachers. Number 8. Secret Avengers. This team operated for 3 years in the comics. It was led by Commander Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter. After the dissolution of Hammer and the Dark Avengers, Steve was now left to decide what should come after. Instead of reforming S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers, he decided to secure global safety through the use of various smaller Avengers teams. Secret Avengers was one of those teams that he himself led, and was a black ops unit used for covertly dealing with the problems that Osborn, Hammer, and the Dark Avengers had left behind and created during their reign. Members included Black Widow, Ant-Man, Beast, Moon Knight, War Machine, Nova, and a Valkyrie named Brunhilde. They were eventually disbanded by Hawkeye following their fight against the Descendants. But man, was it a fun and weird run. Seriously, if you haven't checked out Secret Avengers, you should maybe do it. It's pretty strange. I kinda love it. Number 7. New Guardians. New Guardians is a team comprised of different colored lanterns, more specifically a representative from each color of lantern. The team originally banded together to take down the Black Lanterns, as multiple colors are required to defeat a Black Lantern, and all colors of the emotional spectrum are required to destroy Black Lanterns for good, by combining together to create white light, the light of creation. Whether it's the old team or the newest version of the New Guardians, which has their own comic series and was brought together by Kyle Rayner, both are able to accomplish impressive feats when combining their powers. Number 6. AIM. I know what you're thinking, AIM? Wait, but what? AIM was originally the villainous organization of genius-level scientists, also known as Advanced Idea Mechanics, who aimed, get it, aimed, to overthrow the government and rule the world using technological advancements. So what are you talking about, Amanda? How can they be an Avengers team? Well, this organization eventually was taken over by mutant and hero Sunspot, Roberto da Costa. Sunspot renamed the organization Avengers Idea Mechanics and set out to reclaim and reform it. He used the organization for good, filling it with more noble, brilliant minds who developed tech to help with Sunspot's new Avengers rescue missions. Roberto basically merged his new Avengers team with AIM to create this new technologically advanced Avengers team. Previously, that new Avengers team was actually known as the Multiversal Avengers, and originally they were all about discovering the reason behind the gradual disintegration of the multiverse. Number 5. X-TREME X-Men. This X-Men roster marked the return of Chris Claremont to the X-Men in a full-time capacity. X-TREME X-Men Volume 1 is a series that started in 2001 and ran till 2004. It was a team that featured my girl Rogue as the leader, woohoo, which you know I'm all about. The original X-TREME X-Men roster also featured Beast, Psylocke, Bishop, Storm, Sage, and Thunderbird on the team. Lifeguard, Gambit, and Slipstream were also added to the mix throughout. This team was originally brought together to find Destiny's premonition-filled diaries, but of course along the way was distracted by many other imminent threats. as you do when you're on an X team. Number 4. A-Force. The first all-female team of Avengers. It took us over 50 years, but eventually we got there. This team had 2 self-titled comic series, though sadly both were very short. The team was originally led by She-Hulk, and its members would include Captain Marvel, Medusa, Singularity, Dazzler, and Nico Minoru. A-Force originally took their name from the name for the defenders of the matriarchal nation of Arcadia on Battleworld, where She-Hulk reigned as a baroness. The team was created during the Secret Wars event involving Emperor Doom's Battleworld, and would continue to exist up until the events of Civil War II, when She-Hulk was put into a coma. It's kinda how that whole thing starts. Well, it's part of the start anyways. Number 3. Guardians of the Galaxy. Many casual superhero fans had not even heard about this team before they joined the MCU, it's true. Despite that the original comic book team were not quite as successful as the Avengers, I would still argue that in some areas even they are still better. Remember, better isn't all about money and success, and to add to that, the MCU Guardians are definitely better than MCU Avengers. Both versions of the Guardians are actually more out there, making it easier for their fans to be able to enjoy more outlandish stories without question. Let's not forget the original Guardians squad was comprised of supers from the future and a ton of different aliens. One of the members, Krugar, was even Sorcerer Supreme, and the original Alita was actually 2 entities sharing one body. Alita and Stakar Orgod were both Starhawk. A prime example of how crazy their stories were can be given by taking a look at the character of Starhawk. These step-siblings and later married couple took turns inhabiting the superpowered being while the other just chilled in limbo. The two ended up being married, had kids, but divorced after Stakar started hogging time as Starhawk. In terms of the MCU, Guardians is funnier and feels more likely to just take us anywhere. Its heroes are often more complex as they strive to do good, but also are sometimes just a band of space pirates. Also, Groot. Need I say more? Number 2. Occupy Avengers. I almost said Octopus Avengers, which is not a thing. But maybe it should be a thing, I don't know, they could be a team, they're all octopuses. This series and Avengers spin-off was a small one. It consisted mainly of Hawkeye and followed his adventures on a path for redemption following the events of Civil War II. Let's not forget that it was Hawkeye's arrow that was deemed responsible for the death of Bruce Banner, although Banner had asked that Hawkeye mercy kill him should it be necessary. Although he was acquitted of all murder charges, Hawkeye still felt guilty and sought to make things right. His way of doing this? A more grassroots approach to heroism involving basically a community outreach. Clint focused on more real-world problems that threatened people, like fixing up Santa Rosa, New Mexico's water supply. During the run of Occupy Avengers, Hawkeye would be joined by other heroes such as Red Wolf and Nightshade, who would join him on his quest. Number 1. Savage Avengers. This ruthless team of Avengers is basically one of the newest anti-hero Avenger teams to form, and is more anti-hero than our number 10 spot, the Dark Avengers, because all the members are still definitely the good guys, but are also known for being violent killers as well. This team was formed out of a team-up involving Wolverine and Conan the Barbarian. It consists of Elektra, Dr. Voodoo, formerly known as Brother Voodoo, Elektra, Punisher, and Venom. The team was assembled to combat the combined threat of spellcasters and spell traders from Conan's world and Marvel's main continuity evil secret ninja organization known as The Hand. Number 10. Deadly Genesis. We can talk about different X-Men and mutant teams here, but I'd also like to touch on some of the rosters as well that you may have forgotten about. This one might be due to selective memory loss, or it could just be because you haven't read the story yet. We are talking here about the X-Men Deadly Genesis limited series, which revealed the next team sent into Krakoa after the X-Men team we know went missing. This team wasn't necessarily a bad one at all. In fact, all of these mutants are kind of super powerful, but they were all basically introduced in this short series, which didn't really help to make us care as much about them as we could have. All in all, this story just had a very early 2000s feel to it. Not that that's a bad thing. The Deadly Genesis X-Men team were a group of kids that Moira McTaggart was trying to help out. She didn't even really see them as students, and then Charles recruited them and turned them into X-Men. The team consisted of Sway, Petra, Vulcan, and Darwin, who have all recently reappeared in the Dawn of X line, in case you were wondering where they made their first appearance. Number 9. XAVIERS Security Enforcers. One that we might forget about every now and then is the mutant team that Bishop originally belonged to from the alternate dystopian future that he hails from. I believe this Earth is 1191, but I could be mistaken on that. Didn't even write down my Earth number. bothers me. This mutant team is known as the XSE, which stands for XAVIERS Security Enforcers. If you know Bishop well and you're a big fan, you likely know this team well, but for those who are new to the character, you might not know about this group of enforcers. The point of the team that Bishop was part of was to preserve the long-dead Professor Charles Xavier's dream, where mutants and humans could exist in harmony, living peacefully together. Bishop has even been known to wield specific future equipment, which he got from XSE, although we haven't seen them in a while. All members of the team wear their mutant tattoo brands like a badge of honor, and the members have included Randall, Malcolm, and Bishop's sister Shard, among others over the years. Before we hop into our number 8 spot, I just want to thank all of you for being here and give you a quick reminder to click that like if you are enjoying this video. It really does help us out. Number 8. Nasty Boys. You might remember the original villainous Marauders team, but do you remember Mr. Sinister's Nasty Boys? Don't worry if you have, because I will never let you forget. While both the Marauders and Nasty Boys teams are villainous teams, I couldn't have an obscure mutant team list and not seize the opportunity to remind you all of the Nasty Boys. So here we are. I also just love this name for the team. I personally always read Mr. Sinister with like the most outlandish, flamboyant, yet manipulative pseudo-English accent. So for me, it's very fitting that he decided to name his team this. Nasty Boys, so perfect. It fits perfectly with the voice that I have for him in my mind. The Nasty Boys were the team that came after the Marauders. Instead of Gambit being involved in the team, Multiple Man was the generally heroic mutant who got involved. Originally, the team saw Ruckus as leader, with Slab, Gorgeous George, Ramrod, and Hairbag making up the roster. Gorgeous George even resurfaced in Dawn of X more recently. Yay! I might be the only one, but I'm still kinda hoping that the Nasty Boys as well will make a return. Bring them back. Bring them back. Number 7. Mighty Avengers. Granted, there is more than one Mighty Avengers team, but for the purpose of this list, we're talking about Luke Cage's Mighty Avengers. This team of Avengers formed to look after the Earth after the main Avengers team was forced to roll out when the Builders threatened the entire universe. Yeah, that was a thing, remember that? During the Avengers' absence, Thanos returned to Earth and the Mighty Avengers stepped in to protect their people and their planet. The team was led by Luke Cage and included such heroes as Spectrum, White Tiger, and Blue Marvel, as well as Superior Spider-Man, who at one point attempted to overtake leadership of the team, fighting Luke Cage for it. Number 6. X-Corps. No, I'm not talking about the X Corporation, which has yet to come out, but is still coming our way. Thank goodness. I thought that book was going to be firmly cancelled, but fortunately it has been revived. I'm so ready for X Corporation, let's go. When we talk about X-Corps, we are talking about Banshee's team. He formed this team after Generation X disbanded, and most of the team were composed of that era of mutants. This team was made up of former villains turned heroes and was created to act as a police force basically for the mutant community. Joining Banshee were the Blob, Avalanche, Fever Pitch, Jubilee, Husk, and M, aka Monet. The X-Men team actually did not approve of this team's creation and actually attempted to get Banshee to disband it. In the end, Mystique infiltrated the team and liberated its members, especially the villains, who were being manipulated into behaving heroically by Mastermind under Banshee's orders. Number 5. Fantastic Four. Truly the heart at the center of Marvel. The Fantastic Four are believed to have come about at a time when the offices were actually just about ready to close due to financial strain. They saved Marvel, and for that reason alone, in the sense that simply their creation saved the day and paved the way for teams like the Avengers who would come after them, they are one of the best teams that Marvel has. Yeah, did you know that Fantastic Four actually came first? They debuted in 1961, whereas the Avengers would not make their comic appearance until 1963. Without the Fantastic Four, we probably would not even have the Avengers. Fantastic Four was a labor of love for Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, the same team that brought us the Avengers, and created countless other well-loved Marvel characters. Fantastic Four were designed to push boundaries when it came to the idea of what a superhero was. Lee wanted them to be flawed, almost monstrous, which ultimately changed the story for a superhero. They didn't go out looking to protect humanity, they were just brilliant minds and explorers who were simply tasked with the responsibility after a tragic accident resulted in them getting superpowers. Number 4. Generation Hope. This one is from the 2010 series Generation Hope and was under Cyclops' banner ultimately, following the events of Regenesis. Though the team itself was led by mutant messiah Hope Summers, and its roster consisted of No Girl, Pixie, Primal, Sebastian Shaw, Transonic, Velocidad, and Zero at that time. Though originally Hope's team started pre-Regenesis as just being 5 mutants including Hope herself, with Velocidad, Oya, Primal, and Transonic on the team. The team was a search and rescue group who were brought together as they were acknowledged as being 4 of the 5 lights on Cerebra. Hope basically triggered the rebirth of the mutant gene, activating these mutants. The 5th light was what they sought and kind of why they came together, heading to Tokyo, Japan. Zero was the mutant they sought, who would eventually join the team, although originally would be antagonist. Number 3. US Avengers. The US Avengers is a strange and eclectic team, but also a fun and patriotic one. They worked alongside S.H.I.E.L.D. but were also considered independent of the organization. This team actually coincided with another Avenger-related one that I mentioned earlier, Avengers Idea Mechanics, the new AIM. Sunspot, who was operating under the popular alias of Citizen 5, led and created this team. It was comprised of a quirky yet popular group of heroes, including Robert Maverick's Red Hulk, Cannonball, Tony Ho's Iron Patriot, Squirrel Girl, Pod, and the time-displaced daughter of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones from an alternate future known as Danielle Cage, aka her alternate universe's Captain America. I love Danielle Cage, she's pretty cool. Number 2. Factor 3. Factor 3? That sounds like some kind of toothpaste. This is another villainous team composed of mutants but led by an alien known as Mutant Master. You might not remember it because it was only around for a few issues and also first appeared way early on in X-Men issue 28 back in 1967. This team popped up a few times and would often force mutants into doing their bidding, often mind-controlling Banshee to attempt to kidnap or help kidnap Professor X. What a wacky time it was. Fortunately, in issue 39, Factor 3 was defeated for good and hasn't bothered the X-Men since. So we haven't seen them for a really long time. Number 1. Lightning Force. This X-Men team comes to us admittedly from an alternate reality, which might be why you've never heard of it before. But once you learn about them, you'll likely wish they had remained forgotten. Lightning Force is an X-Men team that we come across in the Exiles, who themselves belong to Earth 597. They are basically the alternate Excalibur team from their reality, a reality where the Axis won World War II. I think you know where we're going with this. Their roster is almost as surprising as the whole idea for this team. We have Herr Xavier, who helped to create the team through experimenting on them. Yikes. And leading the team, we have Hauptmann England, aka Captain Britain, with Magon, aka Gloriana, Shadowcat, and Nightcrawler. Also, if you were wondering, yes, Kitty Pryde is still Jewish in this reality, which makes her character's history here pretty dark. Number 10. Dark Avengers. Okay. While I know the Dark Avengers may be seen to some as a group of supervillains, Norman Osborn was genuinely trying to create a replacement for a superhero team when he put them together. So though the team may be comprised of villains, I would still consider it a superhero team. While the Dark Avengers may not save the day like their more shiny and cordial counterparts, they are definitely more complex and interesting. The members of the team often have to work harder to save the day, working to overcome their own internal and moral struggles, wrestling with the type of person they want to be, and adapting to seeing themselves even as heroes. Number 9. Birds of Prey. DC's Birds of Prey are probably one of the most underrated team that DC has. While they are popular, it has taken quite a while for them to hit the mainstream. They appeared in the Batman animated series, had a short-lived TV show in the early 2000s, and have only now just got their own film. The saddest part of the film is that it won't even be exactly what you imagine if you're a huge fan of the comic series, subbing out Barbara Gordon's Oracle for Harley Quinn in terms of who appears to be acting as their leader on screen. The original core members for the team were Black Canary and Huntress, with Oracle acting as their leader. Gail Simone's inventive writing and all the strong girl power associated with the team is what puts this series in a league of its own. Although the team members often hold different morals or values, they manage to put them aside to work together and save the day, supporting one another. Girl power at its best. Number 8. Eternals. Why are the Eternals so cool? Because they help to build a bridge between the archetypal heroes of mythology and the modern superheroes we have today. The Eternals were created by Jack Kirby in 1976 as a group of superpowered and ancient beings who believed they were put on Earth by the Celestials to act as its defenders. Beyond being ancient and pretty much all-powerful, they have had an effect on the Earth's history by actually being the characters whom they share their names with from our own mythology. Cersei, for example, is the same Cersei who falls in love with and seduces Odysseus. Number 7. OUTBACK. When it comes to X-Men rosters as teams, one of the best but shortest running roster is the OUTBACK team. This era for the X-Men team lasted less than 25 issues, but was still so good that people still talk about it today. Now, if you missed this one and you've never heard of it, it's one that you actually probably should read. Not one of my silly points, more one of my serious and beloved forgotten teams on this list. The team started off in issue 229 of Uncanny X-Men, with Storm, Wolverine, Rogue, Colossus, Dazzler, Longshot, Havoc, and Psylocke on it. We'd also see Jubilee introduced during this roster's time together. The OUTBACK team is noted as being one of the best rosters for the X-Men when it comes to having a group who truly feel like outsiders. Also, you get to enjoy the Inferno story in this run, which is bizarre and magical, so you're welcome for that. Number 6. Defenders. I'm not talking about the television show. For this one, we are going straight to the comics and straight to the original Defenders lineup. This team was a team of happenstance brought together by Dr. Stephen Strange to defeat Yandroth. The team's inaugural members were Namor the Submariner, Hulk, and Silver Surfer. Definitely an impressive group to start. Other long-term members include Hellcat, Nighthawk, Valkyrie, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. Although the original Defenders team shares some members with their TV counterpart, the premise felt much more orchestrated than the comics' ragtag crew of powerhouses. Number 5. All new, all different Avengers. This was both its own new team of Avengers in a series, as well as being known as the name for kind of an entire Marvel-verse soft relaunch, including a variety of spin-offs that took place in 2015, known as the all new, all different verse. This relaunch included a variety of series, including one of my faves, All New Wolverine. But for the purpose of this list, we'll be talking about the all new, all different Avengers founding team and the individual comic series itself that was about them. Following Secret Wars, this all new, all different Avengers team was formed. Originally, it was comprised of Iron Man, Sam Wilson, who was Captain America at the time, Miss Marvel aka Kamala Khan, Miles Morales as Spider-Man, young Sam Alexander as Nova, Vision, and Jane Foster's Thor. Iron Man would act as their leader, but this team wouldn't even officially refer to themselves as Avengers until the very end of issue number 3 of their series. This was a refresh on the Avenger team, one that had no tower, no funding, and wasn't officially even recognized yet. Over time, they would become more established, but the all new, all different team would only exist as it was for 15 issues, up until the events of Civil War II. Number 4. Doom Patrol. The best thing about this group is that they are so outlandish. While Marvel may have the X-Men and Fantastic Four, this team truly stands in a league of their own. They also came out just slightly ahead of the X-Men, though I would argue the two definitely have enough differences to make them stand apart in the best of ways. Namely, that Doom Patrol does not try to sugarcoat the bizarre. They truly embrace their weirdness, and it's glorious. This is especially highlighted during Grant Morrison's run in the series, whose style was then also incorporated into the DCEU show for Doom Patrol. In fact, while Marvel is good at consistently creating a dark, real world for their own superhero dramas thus far, I would say Doom Patrol is the DC show that proves why it just really works better for DC than Marvel. It's a show that is able to take the bizarre and tie it to reality by exploring how one would really deal with the scenarios that we see the team come up against. They are just as surprised as we are. Doom Patrol doesn't just force or paint on the idea of dark or strange. Doom Patrol is dark and strange. Number 3. X-People. You probably forgot about this team just because their name is, well, super forgettable. But they are actually from a very memorable alternate universe, the MC2, or also known as Alternate Earth 982. This Earth is the home of the beloved Mayday Parker, aka Spider-Girl, now known as Spider-Woman. But you know what's not so memorable from that universe? Their version of the X-Men. I mean, I get that X-People is meant to be gender neutral, more inclusive, but is that really the best name they could come up with? There has to be something that isn't X-Men that is better than that. I mean, I know there is because we have dozens of other X teams with the letter X in them that are way more catchy than X people. Because of the Earth it is set in, X people is a team of originally younger mutants who are now older and taking on the role of leaders, mentors, and teachers. Actually, here Jubilee is the team leader, with their core team roster including Simeon, Angry Eagle, Torque, and Spanner. Number 2. Teen Titans. Whether you're reading the comics or watching the original animated series Teen Titans, this group of superheroes are great, mostly because of their bonds and how grounded they often are, while still being so fantastical and super. Especially when watching the animated series, I always found the problems they would deal with would have an underlying arc that would be kinda relatable. It's taking small problems, enlarging them to make them more entertaining, but still keeping an amount of honesty and relatability to keep you connected. Storytelling at its best. While the MCU may be known for having some of Hollywood's best talent around, the animated Teen Titans had some of the best voices, including Tara Strong, Ron Perlman, and Kevin Michael Richardson. Number 1. X-Men. Yeah, you probably knew I was going there if you know me. The X-Men have been around for just as long as the Avengers, but their stories have been ever more zany and interesting. Okay, so granted, some of the Avengers plots have been kinda zany, but usually more zany in a problematic way than the X-Men's plots, which are usually just weird as heck instead, and a lot more fun. Remember when Kitty Pryde got stuck in a giant bullet and was lost in space for years till Magneto pulled her back? Or when Jubilee became a vampire? And those two X-Men aren't even considered the mains of the main roster. The best thing about the X-Men is even if you've fallen off the bandwagon with them at some point, they always have something to bring you back into the fold. Hickman's newest X-Men series have done just that, reimagining the X-Men but still managing to continue the continuity. If you are behind on House of X or Powers of X, by the way, or if you've just left the X-Men behind, you need to come back and you need to read these new series. They are both brilliant. I'm so excited for all the new X-Men comics.